Good morning, everyone. Are we all settled in?
Yes.
All right. I'm going to get started momentarily. Clerk Lyons, Commissioner Coleman mentioned he might be a little late on the call today, so just letting you know. It is 8:30. Welcome, everyone, to the Kent County Board of Commissioners meeting for Thursday, January 28th at 8:30. Pursuant to Michigan MCL 15.263A, we are meeting virtually. If you have any public comment you'd like to submit in the public comment email, you can submit it to publiccomment@kentcountymi.gov. And with that, we will open up the meeting. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Good morning, Madam Chair and Commissioners. As I call the roll, just want to remind you to please state the city or township that you are currently located in. With that, Commissioner Wooden.
Here, out of Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Womack.
Here, Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Teal. Commissioner Teal.
Here, Grand Rapids Township, Michigan.
Vice Chair Steck. Vice Chair Steck. Commissioners Sparks. Commissioner Sparks. Skaggs.
Here.
In Grand Rapids or East Grand Rapids, Commissioner?
East Grand Rapids. Sorry.
Commissioners Constein.
Here, City of Granville.
Morgan.
Here, Fort Morgan and Kent County.
And Fort Morgan is in what township?
It's on Teft Avenue. I can't believe you don't know where that's at.
For the record, sir.
Yeah, this is, I don't know what rocket scientist figured this out, but I'm in Cortland Township.
Thank you. Commissioner McLeod.
Here, Kentwood, Michigan.
Grand.
Here, did you say my name? I'm sorry, the sound is going in and out. Here, Grand Rapids, Michigan. Thank you, Clerk.
Coleman. Coleman. Jones.
Here, Cannon Township, Kent County, Michigan.
Commissioner Hennessy.
Here, Grand Rapids.
Commissioner Green.
Here, Plainfield Township.
Commissioner Burrell.
I am here in the city of Granville.
Commissioner Bulkowski.
Present on a Anishinaabe land known as Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Commissioner Breavy.
Here, Gaines Township, Kent County, Michigan.
Commissioner Antor.
Here, Sparta, Michigan.
Commissioner Bolter.
Here, Cascade, Michigan, Kent County.
Before I tally the roll, I'll go one more time. Vice Chair Stack.
Yes, here, City of Walker, Kent County, Michigan. Sorry for the connection problem.
Commissioner Sparks. Commissioner Coleman. Madam Chair, you have 17 members present, 2 absent. You have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Sparks is here.
Commissioner Sparks, where are you located, Commissioner Sparks?
I am in Kent County, Kentwood, Michigan. Thank you.
Madam Chair, you now have 18 members present and 1 absent. You still have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We are on to invocation, and I will call on Commissioner Ponstein.
Thank you, Chair Bolter. For today's invocation, I'm reading a poem from John O'Donovan from his Book of Blessings. May the gift of leadership awaken in you as a vocation. Keep you mindful of the providence that calls you to serve. As high over the mountain, the eagle spreads its wings. May your perspective be larger than the view from the foothills. When the way is flat and dull in times of gray endurance, may your imagination continue to evoke horizons. When thirst burns in times of drought, may you be blessed to find the wells. May you have the wisdom to read time clearly and know when the seed of change will flourish. In your heart, may there be a sanctuary for the stillness where clarity is born. May your work be infused with passion and creativity and have the wisdom to balance compassion and challenge. May your soul find graciousness to rise above the fester of small mediocrities. May your power never become a shell wherein your heart would silently atrophy. May you welcome your own vulnerability as the ground where healing and truth join. May integrity of your soul be your first idea, the source that will guide you and bless your work. Amen.
Amen. That was awesome. Thank you, Commissioner Ponstein. We are on to the Pledge of Allegiance. We have the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, let's get into it. We are on item 5 of our agenda today. We have a special order of business from the Gerald R. Ford International Airport, and I'll call on Tori Richardson.
Thank you, Chair Bolter. Can you hear me okay?
We can. Welcome.
Thank you, and thank you, fellow commissioners. Let me go ahead and get screen share going here for you. Hopefully you are able to see the screen.
Yep, yes. We can see it.
Excellent. Well, good morning, and thank you for allowing us a few minutes of your time today just to give you an update on what's going on with the airport. We'll spend a few minutes on slides, and I'll go through them fairly quick, but hopefully you'll have some questions and comments. You can either do that along the way, or if you prefer, you can hold them to the very end. Our first slide here, though, is folks that you know, you appoint them to our board. We're very pleased to have an outstanding and diverse board representing many different disciplines. They help guide our way, and so thank you for making those good, thoughtful appointments to our board. Work well together. Also want to share that we have a great leadership team. We work very hard together to ensure that we are open, operational, efficient, secure, and safe for our guests in all of West Michigan. And our leadership team, all the way down to frontline employees, work with pride and represent us very well. Obviously, you can't have an airport update without hearing something on the impacts of COVID and what a huge impact that has had for travel and airports and airlines in particular in this case. So many of the impacts have been negative, especially when you're looking at the passenger and revenue numbers. However, there's also been some bright spots as well. Our facility is cleaner and safer due to our ongoing focus of the guest experience and ways that we're working to minimize the spread of COVID-19. Earlier last year, shortly after we started in the pandemic, we launched our Fly Safe, Fly Forward campaign, which is really focused to educate travelers on new precautions for their health and to restore confidence in air travel. And so it's really been tying those recent efforts around a safe, clean experience for our guests, along with just allowing the guests a better understanding of what may have changed since the last time they were traveling and what they would expect to come through our process. So very proud of the work that we've done here. In fact, in this next slide, you can see that we actually gained attention by the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health. And we were one of just a handful of airports that they selected for a deep dive interview and back and forth dialogue about what is happening at airports and on airplanes to prevent the spread of COVID and other types of diseases. And so they were looking at like our air handler systems, you know, the placards, the plexiglass that we have in place, social distancing requirements, enforcement, all of that information. We expect them to have this second phase of their study that focuses on airports come out any day, but we're a proud partner in helping to educate what is happening at airports and possibly even identify ways that could be improved going forward. And that will really be the intent of the study. Of course, we're also very proud on a chilly day out here on December 13th to have the very first Pfizer vaccine shipment leave by air from the Gerald R. Ford International Airport, which we hope was beginning to the end of this pandemic. What that day proved to us is that it could be done possibly and successfully. That vaccine was taken to the FedEx hub in Memphis and then was disseminated beyond that. So we're doing that every day. FedEx is carrying that vaccine and we're playing a vital role. And that's something that the airport has always prided ourselves on, being that good part and good community steward. Of course, our board is very focused on ensuring we are a good reflection of our community. So along those lines, they want to make sure we're incorporating the history and the heritage and the art and other things that our guests and our community residents would see, and so that we are an extension of the community. Some of the art is in the terminal. We're wrapping up some projects now that are bringing more of that in. But back in October, we had the unveiling of our Presidential Gateway Plaza and the President Ford statue, which was a huge success. You can see here in the upper left, we had former board member and Commissioner Vonk, along with current board members and commissioners Morgan and Breevy joining us for that event. But really was well attended and very nice way of capping off some work that had been, you know, underway for a couple of years. And despite the pandemic and all the limitations and restrictions that we had, we were still able to have some fun and bring in some of that heritage and history into the airport. Of course, most of you probably haven't been out here in a while unless you're flying, but this is what our Gateway Transformation Phase 2 project is looking like. Literally much brighter, floor to ceiling, nice shine on the floors, nice new fixtures throughout, nice lighting throughout, really trying to upgrade the experience for our guests. We're very proud of that. It was a $17.5 million project. We have completed it substantially. We are, like I said earlier, bringing in some more artwork that was on the tail end of that project just to make sure that everything was in place and clean and weren't going to be needing to disturb anything as we bring those pieces in. But still ready to do some more of that as soon as we can do so under the COVID work restrictions. So some of the work takes a larger gathering of folks to put the art in place, and we'll have to hold on doing some of that work. But very pleased to wrap up that project. Of course, as we close the books on 2020, I want to share some of our statistics. So total passengers decreased by 51%, just under 51%. You can see that on the graph here. Obviously, we knew that the pandemic was going to have a significant impact to us. We also knew that midway through the year, we were going to have to reforecast where we thought we would end up. And honestly, this is exactly where we thought we'd be. We were hoping to be closer to 55, but for budgeting and planning purposes, we had planned to be at about 50%, which is pretty good. And I'll share a slide relative to the national average in just a minute to give you a little bit better perspective. But as you look at month to month, obviously here in the slide, you can see large drop in April and then a slow but steady recovery coming out of that. We did end the year a little bit lower than what we had planned. Again, that was additional spikes in COVID cases, as well as additional travel restrictions that were put in place as a result. So those numbers did come in a little bit lower. Bright spot here is we had a goal of hitting 22 direct destinations. We actually ended the year with 23. So that is a good thing. We'll talk a little bit more about the air service in a minute, but that demonstrates that our community is ready, willing, and able to travel, and the airlines see that and are putting service back into our market as a result. On this slide, this is giving you the indication of where we stand relative to the national average. So our airport is in the blue. The national average is here in the red. If you look at the far left, we're actually doing better than the national average before the pandemic, hit pretty hard and pretty low early on, and then started our gradual recovery back out, for the most part, beating the national average by about 10 to 15 percentage points. And even as far as, you know, out here on the right, as late as this week and last, still well ahead of the national average. Again, we finished the year at about 50%. The national average numbers are closer to 39%. So West Michigan's strong and we're resilient. I think all of us on the call here know that that's who we are as people. Again, that's important to know for the airlines. We have a very good market share here with the airlines. Delta still being the #1 carrier, followed closely by American Airlines, then Allegiant, then Southwest, then United and Frontier. What this pie graph shows us though is with fairly equal distribution like this, that means they're healthy and competitive. We like to see this more so than a very dominant player in there. So when we talk about health of the airlines, competitiveness for pricing, and we'll share a slide on that as well, this represents a very good picture of air service for Grand Rapids and West Michigan. Allegiant, again, has been very bullish on our market. So even within the pandemic timeframe, they've launched new flights. They continue to do that. You can see on this map, starting in about 2 weeks, we're going to have Los Angeles and Austin restarting. And then about a month later, we'll see Boston, Newark, and Destin, Florida come online on March 5th, all on the same day. Again, Allegiant's been very bullish on our market. They continue to capture market share. And again, at this point, leisure traffic is predominantly the traffic that's bringing back the recovery. And so sun and fun destinations and carriers, air carriers that are flying to those sun and fun places are the ones that we're seeing be most healthy at this point and productive. If you look at where we're at, I mentioned a little bit ago, we were hoping to end the year at 22 direct destinations. We ended at 23. You can see as of this month, we're actually at 24. So kind of forward looking, again, with the last slide showing more service coming online, really 24 nonstops now, continuing to grow. We continue to have conversations with airlines about adding more service into the market. Just to give you some context, prior to the pandemic, we had 36 direct nonstop destinations. So at 22, going to 24, and continuing that climb, trying to get back to where we were. If you look at airfare, we won't spend a lot of time on this slide, but obviously the important piece is right here. National average 245, we're at 247, almost 248. The yellow bars indicate other airports within Michigan, so you can get an idea of how we stand relative to the others. Lower for the most part. We do leak a little bit of traffic to Chicago, and that is O'Hare as well as Midway over here on the far right side. So we do highlight those as a comparison benchmark for us. But again, doing very well. This third quarter was not as good as the last quarter in terms of second quarter. We were actually considerably lower than the national average. But again, given what's going on with the air service and the changes, we expect this to be somewhat volatile. So we keep an eye on it, but we don't get fixated on the numbers here. Again, what we're looking for though is competitive airfares, healthy airlines, and hopefully that means decent pricing for our guests. Looking at our cargo year to date, we have been pretty flat on cargo year over year and finished 2020 just less than 1% better than 2019. But again, despite the pandemic and the slowdown and everything else with restrictions and being shut down, that is still quite favorable to see the cargo still finish pretty strong with a healthy peak season. In terms of our budget, just as a reminder, budgeted revenues here over $44 million. The largest piece of that this year for 2021 is actually the airlines. That is unusual. It is typically parking. Parking at 35% is significantly down based on the passenger volume. So normally we would see this number well over 50%. Parking by far is our largest share of revenue on a normal year. This next year, hopefully we'll see that parking number grow better than what we're seeing in the budget. And that means less cost over here for the airlines. So we're focused on that, and we are staying in touch with the airlines as we work through our budget as well as our operational recovery. Over on the expense side, you can see here, large portion of it is contracted services. So almost $28 million. Contracted services take up the majority of it. Those are things like parking, janitorial, some of the security, additional security services that we have, stormwater management, advertising, consulting, legal, et cetera. And then personnel following in here at number 2. If you look on this graph, what we're really showing you here is obviously operating expenses kind of on the reddish color, debt service, that bluish color, the operating margin or revenues above that. The gap between it is really the money that we spend to invest in our capital infrastructure program. So obviously we're doing very well. Prior to the pandemic, last year ended up pretty much break even, hoping to do a little bit more than that with this year. But those last 2 years, 2020 and 2021, as noted here, are budgeted numbers. So we'll continue to focus on doing the best we can there. In terms of large projects, many of you are familiar with our project Elevate, which really focuses on 3 large projects under that Elevate banner: the FIS, or Federal Inspection Station, Concourse Expansion, and our new air traffic control tower. On the Federal Inspection Station, this is a rendering of what the expansion of the terminal will look like. This is, if you were looking at the terminal, this is an expansion to the northeast. It's the first phase, a $10 million project to build out additional baggage service space, as well as some restrooms that in the future, when expanded again, will be able to house international processing operations for international traffic. So work is underway. Literally, this next photo shows some of that actual steel work, concrete work, as well as getting the some of the mechanical equipment in on the mezzanine level and getting that closed up here, hopefully in February. Looking for a completion. I believe the completion is scheduled for June of this year, weather permitting, of course. Project Elevate includes that Concourse A that we've talked to you about before. That work is on hold. We did complete the design of that, but the work has been put on hold, awaiting for the return of passenger demand. And with the airlines having their approval for us to proceed moving forward. So in most cases, airport projects have been finished that haven't started, but they have not taken on new projects or supported new projects to start, just given the overall financial health of the airlines and the lack of traveling passengers at this point. This is a 2-year project, so we don't want to wait until we need it. We want to get started before we need it, because we need it to come online, like I said, you know, at the end of 2 years, and hopefully that's timed well with when the traffic levels are back. But we continue to work with the airlines, understanding what the recovery looks like. And again, we want to see a stable recovery underway before we proceed too much further on it. This next slide is our Apron Expansion. So that was $17 million worth of investment that we put in. This area in the center here is where the expanded terminal will be when Concourse A is expanded. So the rest of the apron is set up to support aircraft operations. This area will actually be torn out and when we do the construction of Concourse A. The third project is that tower. The air traffic control tower has been something that has actually been a detriment for our future development for some time. We've been working on it for many, many years. We continue to have good conversations now. We've picked that project back up in terms of getting the FAA's attention on it. We have been in several days, hours of these video calls going through a siting study. You can see orientation here on the airport. This is sort of the northeast area of the airport. The current control tower and terminal situated right here. So this is across the airfield. We're actually looking at 3 sites in this general area and literally just finished up a very significant piece of work, which is a virtual siting study that was conducted and finished up as of yesterday. Hopefully that will set the stage that we can look at design, construction costs, timing, and funding. So that project is a very good project for paving the way for future development out here. Another project we're proud of is our operations facility. So currently we have operations and communications and other functions and departments scattered around the facility. This new operations facility is about a $8 million project that will be located over similar to where the new tower will be located, or across from AvFlight, if you're familiar with our fixed base operation location over there. This is really phase 1 of a 2-phase project. So the first phase will house our operations, communications folks, as well as the emergency operations center. The second phase later will be the addition of our aircraft rescue firefighting facilities and storage facilities for those apparatus and various bays over there and connected to this facility. Construction should begin when we can break ground here in the spring, and we hope to finish this in the fall of 2022. Ongoing work out here also includes the work that we do investing in and understanding our environment and the impacts that we have. So I think most of you are very familiar with the state and federal requirements for us to have AFFF or aqueous film forming foam on board our firefighting equipment. We have been working very closely with all of these entities that are listed here, Kent County, Department of Health, MDOT, FAA, Eagle, Cascade Township, as well as other national organizations that are understanding and trying to figure out best ways of dealing with PFAS that has made its way into the ground and into water. So our work continues on this. Our team has updated our website. You can see the web address here. If you'd like to go in there, it lays out a very nice timeline of the work that's been done to date, where we're at to date, and where next steps will be. But I can assure you that working with MDOT and the FAA and others, we have limited any additional exposure from this. Really, the only time we would be putting foam out there is if it's an actual emergency, in which case we know that this is a concern and would immediately begin cleanup efforts when appropriate. So we've already done the modifications to purchasing equipment so that we can test and calibrate the equipment. FAA has changed requirements in terms of how they require us to test. So there is no more discharge of AFFF on the airport, again, unless it's an emergency. And again, that website will give you a whole lot more information about where we're at. And then finally, just want to share with you, this year we are focused on launching our development plans on this 900 acres of developable land. We worked with a consultant last year to put this together, really looking at launching this year, looking for opportunities for highest and best use of land around the airport that is also compatible with airport operations. And we're pleased, again, even despite the pandemic, to announce that this year we're slated for 3 commercial hangar projects. So despite the pandemic, we do have folks interested in developing, and businesses are growing out here, and we're very pleased with that. Madam Chair, that completes my presentation. I'd be happy to take any questions or comments that you may have.
Thank you, Tori. That was very informative and very efficient. I will look for questions from the board. Any hands raised? Commissioner Jones.
Thank you, Chair Bolter. Tori, could you just touch upon the COVID testing, and specifically, I was curious, the expansion of that, is that COVID testing one that if a passenger wanted to get to Hawaii, would Hawaii accept the results from that COVID test location?
Yeah, so they should be, make sure the video's on here. They should accept the testing for that. It is required. I will note that there is also additional information out there as of yesterday about the possibilities even requiring testing for domestic travel. So obviously in place right now as of the 26th, you have to have that test and proof of a negative result for international travel. That may actually be coming to domestic travel as well. But the testing facility is out here open from 4:30 a.m. till about 8 p.m. We do see about 100 users of that on a daily basis. You can get the 2 different tests. You can do the one that's going to take you probably 24 to 48 hours, but you can also do the rapid test, the antigen testing in about 15 minutes. And it does not, you don't have to have the symptoms. You don't have to have insurance for it. You can just drive up and get the test, get the peace of mind, and use that for your travel. But I would also make sure that you check with your airlines around specific requirements that they may have around proof that you need and the time frames at which you might need it. Because again, some of the international locations are specifying different timing requirements.
Well, and I think Hawaii has specific lab requirements. And I was just curious if the one in Grand Rapids checks the box for what Hawaii looks for. Do you happen to know that?
I don't know that offhand. I will find out.
Okay.
Yep.
And then I just personally was at the airport over the holidays. My mom came in from Florida, and what an incredible asset it is for our community. Very easy to go to short-term parking, very easy to get her luggage and get her in and out of there. So I've always been a huge fan and will continue to be a huge fan and fly GR. Thank you.
I appreciate that. And so does the rest of the team out here. Thank you.
Commissioner Morgan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hey, great report, Tori. I appreciate it. Big takeaway for me is a couple of things. Right now, we're able to cover our liabilities on our bonding, correct?
Correct. So we typically have 2 payments each year, one in January and then one in July. The largest one is the principal and interest in January. That payment's already been made. So as you look at 2021, the largest impact is already behind us. Also to note, you know, we have a monthly transfer, if you will, to the trustee. So there is never a huge payment due or a balloon payment, if you will, throughout the year when these payments are due. It happens every month with a transfer to the trustee, and then they make that payment on our behalf. So yeah, longer answer than what you probably needed, Roger, but we are able to cover all of our debt service, and we have already planned for that all of this year. Again, operating at about 50%, we can cover all of our operating expenses as well as debt service. So we're doing okay.
Oh, and Madam Chair, may I ask another question?
Of course.
Okay. Hey, Tori, as far as the projects that are underway now, those have been in the pipeline, and they do have constraints on how long the funding lasts, right? So we had to get them underway. Is that right? Is that my understanding?
That's correct. That's correct, Commissioner. We did have some that were under timing requirements. So like our federal inspection station, there was some eligibility requirements. You must start construction. In this case, it was prior to the end of 2020, which we did. In other cases, some of the federal grants also have limitations on them. So we do everything possible to maximize the state and federal participation, making sure that we are in eligibility guidelines with the requirements that they have. Sometimes it's timing, sometimes it's a lot more than just the timing.
Well, and I really appreciate your efforts with this PFAS, because we do, you know, we have a solid reputation with our neighbors as far as the environment goes, because we did spend a lot of money on a glycol issue, and it's really nice to know that you're out in front of the curve on this PFAS issue too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Bukowski.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Tori, for this, I want to say, very positive report in spite of the circumstances. And definitely thank you for your continued commitment to making sure that all passengers are able to experience the airport without any barriers. That being said, I just want to quick go back to the Concourse Expansion. And I know a couple of your board members are listening, but can you give us a little better sense of like when you hope to start and have that finished? And again, no promises expected, but just because from my perspective, everything else is back of the house. This is going to be, you know, such the front door when people arrive in Kent County.
Yeah, I'd be happy to share more. Obviously, with the federal inspection station, that expansion on the curb is already happening today. So again, we'll see that first phase wrap up later this year, weather permitting. The Concourse A expansion piece, the one that is beyond security, but out in the gate areas, adding new gates, new concession space, a new lounge space, all of that, again, has to be coordinated with the airlines. We continue to work with them. It would be my hope that I'm back revisiting this topic in conversation with you all later this year. That means we're seeing the recovery come back and it's stable. It's not a up and down. We gain ground and then we lose ground, but that we're on a pretty good, solid trajectory on recovery. And I think we'll see that. So my hope is that we can come back and talk later in the year about financing for that and proceeding with that. But again, we would only do that once we are also comfortable working with the airlines to support that project moving forward. And for them, they need to see that the passengers are getting back on airplanes in at least substantial volumes.
But a quick follow-up, didn't we approve the bonds for the project, or did those expire and you have to come back?
So we ran through finance and got the approval there. We never took it back to the full county board because of what had happened. So everything got put on the shelf. Honestly, we would take a look and make sure that the design is still appropriate given it was designed prior to the pandemic. The pandemic may cause us to do different things with different spaces. So we'd want to dust that off, make sure that that's appropriate moving forward before we come back to you with a new scope and cost estimates, et cetera.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Steck.
Thank you, Chair Bolter. Good morning, Tori, and thank you for the report. I had the pleasure of going through the airport a couple of months ago and saw some of the new completion and the entryway. It really is very impressive, so good work.
Thank you.
Am I correct that as you talk about the process of moving forward on the new tower, this conversation has been around for a long time, as you've noted, but my recollection is that in it's anticipated that most of the funding would be federal funding for that?
That great question, Commissioner. Yes, that is the intent. Now, what we have talked with the FAA about, so yeah, you're right, this has been going on since the 90s. When I was able to meet with the FAA in DC prior to the pandemic, we really did talk about, are there other ways for creative funding to help get this done sooner? Because from the FAA's perspective, they feel the tower is adequate. It does not jeopardize or diminish the ability for airplanes to come and go. What it does do is impacts our ability for future development. So really, their position is we need to be a partner in this solution because it's really hindering our development, not so much hindering their operation. So we continue to have those conversations. We would hope that once we finish this, what we call AFTIL study, it's the virtual sighting study that has to take place so you can understand exact placement, the size of the cab, the height of the cab. Then you can get to, well, now what is that going to cost for construction and design so that we can then work with the federal government on the acquisition process to get in the funding line to get it. Obviously, that will take a lot of support from West Michigan. We've seen that in the past. We've shared those letters with the appropriate parties saying that this is something that's important to this community, and we're going to keep pushing it. And I think that's why we've been able to get recent attention again from the FAA to start working on this project again.
Good. So one last follow-up, and I've raised this before, but is there any planning at this point to incorporate into your business center? I know you've got something there, but a conference room space that would be available to folks that want to fly in, use the conference room space for their business meetings, and then instead of having to leave. I note that people that attend these conferences, they drive there, they park there, they can afford to pay parking, so maybe it's a good income generator.
That's a great question. We do have those facilities, obviously a little bit different environment right now with the restrictions on gatherings. And so the space requirements and capacity issues are a bit of a challenge for us, but we do have some of our spaces that were remodeled or almost finished before the pandemic hit. A couple of the other spaces are on hold, but we could certainly accommodate people who need conference and audio video capabilities for business meetings.
Good. As we get out of this, might be worth continuing to market that capacity to the business community.
Great point.
Commissioner LeGrand.
Thank you, Chair Bolter. I have a question about the development of those outlying sites and how that relates to the plans for future expansion of airport operations themselves. Do you anticipate, or I don't know how far out you would anticipate needing more runway space? I assume there's no conflict, but I'm just curious how that works together in the planning process.
That's a great question, Commissioner, because that's something that we consistently and continually have to be aware of. So all of our future development out here, we plan for 20 to 40 years out, and we actually have even plans that go beyond 40 years. So an additional runway is out past 40 years, but we already have the land for that additional runway, and we're protecting those airspaces, those surfaces for that runway, so we won't have the environmental issues when we try to go ahead and build that if that need ever comes. So we work very closely with the FAA and our engineering team to understand exact placement of developments and making sure that they are going to be compatible with our operations as well as zoning and the surrounding community. So that development plan incorporates that. So those parcels that you saw on the map there do comply with both our existing as well as ultimate build out of the airport, including its taxiways, runway, environment, et cetera.
Fantastic, thank you. One other quick question. When you talked about the expanded federal inspection space, are you anticipating more international flights? You mentioned international flights. Do you expect expanded service internationally?
We do. It's probably going to take a lot longer now than what we had anticipated prior to the pandemic. So we know right now in the travel industry that the most difficult travel is international, and that the most suppressed or depressed traffic numbers is international travel. And talking with the airlines who have the best, I'll say, crystal ball at this point, understanding that future need, are telling us it's probably 5 years before we see international travel come back the way it was. And so we're going to have to just watch that. But our board has been pushing us to make sure that we're capable and ready when that comes back. And that first phase of the FIS is building that that first section that we can immediately put to use for baggage handling, because we've already got a little bit of a shortage with the baggage handling capabilities out here now. That buys us a little bit more space for that. And once we're able to get closer to the international operations, we could build out that second phase and utilize that whole additional space for international processing. So the short answer is yes, we'll continue to work towards international service, understanding it's probably going to take us many years before we can get back to that.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Chair Bolter.
Thank you. Any other questions for Tori? I don't see any hands raised. I just have one. I really, again, appreciate all the work you've done in the collaboration on PFAS. It is affecting my district, and so I really appreciate the airport's willingness to work with all the partners. If there's anything we can do on an advocacy side in terms of getting the federal government to stop that requirement, please, we will do anything. I just hope that we can, work toward an aggressive cleanup plan and an aggressive collaborative plan moving forward. So I do appreciate the work being done, but anything we need to do in terms of an all hands on deck from the board, I would ask that you share those thoughts, and we can proceed with that.
Certainly appreciate that, and do know that we work on it continually. Literally, I've got a call yet this morning to advance those discussions even further. So we are working with the state as well as the Federal Aviation Administration on the right path forward for this. So it's of interest and concern for us, and we're working collaboratively with others to address it. So thank you. Appreciate that offer.
Thank you, Tori.
Thank you.
All right, I don't see any other hands up. I really appreciate your presentation today, and obviously the airport is a big jewel at the county, and we are so proud of all the work and everything you're doing. So thank you so much.
Thank you. We appreciate your support.
All right, we're on to item 6 of our agenda, public comment related to an agenda item. Do we have any public comment in the email inbox or any public comment related to an agenda item today?
There are no messages in the public comment email inbox.
Okay, and I don't see any hands raised. All right, we're going to move on to item 7, consent agenda. Now I'll call on Commissioner Ponstein.
Thank you, Chair Bolter. I move the consent agenda for today's date.
Moved by Commissioner Ponstein, support by Commissioner Breivy. Questions or comments on the consent agenda? Don't see any hands. All right, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On the motion to adopt the consent agenda, Commissioners Wooden.
Yes.
Womack.
Yes.
Gill.
Yes.
Vice Chair Steck.
Yes.
Sparks.
Yes.
Skaggs.
Yes.
Ponstein.
Yes.
Morgan.
Yes.
Cloud.
Yes.
Brand.
Yes.
Allman.
Yes, and since I wasn't here at the beginning, disclose I'm voting from Byron Center.
Thank you, Commissioner Coleman. Commissioners Jones.
Yes.
Hennessy.
Yes.
Yes.
Burl.
Yes.
Volkowski.
Yes.
Breivy.
Yes.
Antor.
Yes.
Chair Bolter.
Yes.
Madam Chair, you have 19 yeas, 0 nays. Passes. The consent agenda is adopted.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We are on to item 8 of our agenda, resolutions, and I will call on Commissioner Breivy.
Thank you, Chair Bolter. I move resolution 2 of today's date, contract with TBD Solutions to provide project management and planning for a mental health crisis system. It comes to us from the Administrator's Office and the Health Department.
Support by Sparks.
Moved by Commissioner Breivy, support by Commissioner Sparks. Questions or comments on resolution number 2? Commissioner Volkowski.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to echo my comments from Finance, which is to thank Wayman and staff and the partnership working on this. We had a good conversation in Finance to get a little more into how the planning for the crisis system, mental health crisis system, is woven in with the planning for the Mental Health Crisis Center and other things that are happening in our community. So again, thank you, Wayman, for the work on this, and everybody else that's been part of it.
You're welcome.
Great. Commissioner Steck.
Thank you, Chair Bolter. Just to follow up on that, again, this is an exciting development in a process that has taken us years of deliberation and conversation and working with partners and stakeholders across the community. So it's very exciting to see us move to the possibility of actually implementing these plans, and look forward to supporting this and seeing what comes out of it.
Great. Commissioner Jones.
Thank you, Chair Bolter. Just wanted to make a note that the Finance Committee, while we were talking about this and passed it, there was the discussion about more contributions from the private sector, and that did happen. Is that correct, Wayman? Since
yes,
this was
that
passed?
did. We did get confirmation from Mary Freebed. They came in, so the number has grown since that time. Of all the partners, we still have just one more partner that hasn't contributed. We're hoping to hear back from them. I won't call them out, but yeah, we've got full participation from all the partners.
I just think that is fabulous, and since that was mentioned as a possibility during finance, I'm very comfortable supporting this. So thank you.
Any other questions on Resolution 2 today? I don't see any hands. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On the motion to adopt Resolution 2, Commissioner Wooden.
Yes.
Womack.
Yes.
Hill.
Yes.
Vice Chair Steck.
Yes.
Sparks.
Yes.
Skaggs.
Yes.
Fonstein.
Yes.
Morgan.
Yes.
Cloud.
Yes.
Grand.
Yes.
Coleman.
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
Hennessy.
Yes.
Green.
Yes.
Burrow.
Yes.
Volkowski.
Yes.
Yes.
Cantor.
Yes.
Chair Bolter.
Yes.
Madam Chair, you have 19 yeas, 0 nays. The motion passes. Resolution 2 is adopted.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We are on to 8B of our agenda, and I will call on Commissioner Womack.
Yes, I would like to move Resolution 8B of today's date, Community Development Federal Project Fund Program Income Appropriation.
Moved by Commissioner Womack, support by Commissioner
Support by Ponstein.
Ponstein. Questions or comments on Resolution 3 today? No hands. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Madam Chair, on the motion to adopt Resolution 3, Commissioners Wooden.
Yes.
Womack.
Yes.
Hill.
Yes.
Vice Chair Steck.
Yes.
First Sparks.
Yes.
Skaggs. Commissioner Skaggs. There's Ponstein.
Yes.
Morgan.
Yes.
Cloud.
Yes.
Grand.
Yes.
Coleman.
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
Hennessy.
Yes.
Green.
Yes.
Burrell. Volkowski.
Yes.
Yes.
Cantor.
Yes.
Chair Bolter.
Yes.
One more time, Commissioner Skaggs. Madam Chair, you have 18 yeas, 0 nays. The motion passes. Resolution 3 is adopted.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We are on to number 9 on our agenda, public comment related to general county matters. I do have someone who did put in a chat request, Roger McCleary. Mr. McCleary, are you there? And you'll have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to start off by thanking Commissioner Volkowski, who is my commissioner for the Indigenous Land Acknowledgement at the beginning of the meeting. The issue that I would also like to thank you and the vice chairs for the statement on the events of the Capitol, but I would note that I was only able to get the full statement by going down to the county building. So perhaps in the future, those statements could be put up somewhere on the Board of Commissioners webpage, so they're a little easier to find. I have run for this commission in the past when I first moved to the county. That was a while ago. That was even before before Dan Korndike was commissioner. But I would like to say that some of us in the county still have some strong feelings about what happened at the Capitol. I know that the commission cannot officially do much about that particular situation. However, I do think it is vital that we communicate our feelings about that to our federal officials to make sure something like that does not happen in the future. And I would note that I am opposed to protest turning into violence of any kind. But what I would like to read a little bit from what Alexander Hamilton says in Federalist #1. He thought this important enough that it is in the very first of the Federalist Papers. He says, an enlightened zeal for the energy and efficiency of government will be stigmatized as the offspring of a temper fond of despotic power and hostile to the principles of liberty. An over-scrupulous jealousy of danger to the rights of the people, which is more commonly the fault of the head than of the heart, will be represented as mere pretense and artifice, the stale bait for popularity at the expense of public good. It will be forgotten on the one hand that jealousy is the usual concomitant of violent love, and that the noble enthusiasm of liberty is too apt to be infected with a spirit of narrow and a liberal distrust. On the other hand, it will be equally forgotten that the vigor of government is essential to the security of liberty, that in the contemplation of a sound and well-informed judgment, their interests can never be separated, and that a dangerous ambition more often lurks behind the specious mask of zeal for the rights of the people than under the forbidding appearance of zeal for the firmness and efficiency of government. History will teach us that the former has been found a much more certain road to the introduction of despotism than the latter, and that of those men who have overturned the liberty of republics, the greatest number have begun their career by paying an obsequious court to the people.
Mr. McCleary, we're at time. Are you wrapping up? Sorry.
Yes, I'm wrapping up. Oh,
yep.
Again, I know that not all Republicans support what happened at the Capitol. I know that not all Republicans support Mr. Trump, but I think that we need to hear from many that their thoughts about that.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you so much for your input today and for joining us. We appreciate it. Any other public comment today?
Yes, Scott Atchison.
Hi, Scott.
Hello.
Welcome.
I did ask
talk about visitor center
or information center, kind of the same.
All right, let's hear it.
Okay, that's basically what it'll do. My name is Scott Atchison, for you commissioners who haven't heard my spiel before, but this is what basically it will do. Next slide, please. Okay, now keep it, yeah. Then this is basically what people will be doing for visitors in the booth. Next slide. Okay, basically, first of all, I want to say what a great airport we have. What a great presentation. I learned a lot, you know, and they have an information center at the airport. So basically, First of all, your CVB is doing a good job, a great job, but they're just not doing a complete job. You know, what do we all have in common? Downtown Grand Rapids. Kent County, why I'm addressing you, Kent County owns the bonds for the convention center and the Van Andel Arena. Plus, Kent County controls the Convention and Visitors Bureau contract and the hotel motel taxes and assessment. You guys use your taxes and assessments to pay the bonds back for the arena and convention center and the Convention and Visitors Bureau to promote the city. Okay, what's open downtown? You know, for food, nobody knows. That's what this information center will be doing. In a few days, restaurants are going to reopen for 25% indoor seating, but who's going to be open? Who has closed for good? That's what this information center will do every day. We'll let everybody know for bars and restaurants, retail, museum activities of what's open. If you're not open, you don't go on the list. I'm calling it like a daily menu matrix. It's listed on the bottom left of this document. It'll show what restaurants and bars are open that day, when they open, close, with food specials, and all addresses, phone number, websites will be linked to your devices with HTML. So every day, everybody's going to know downtown, just downtown, 1 mile or less from this booth at Pearl and Monroe. Very important. 1 mile, no information on Leonard Street, 28th Street, Easttown, Cascade, Caledonia, Wyoming, Kentwood. No, just 1 mile at most from the location at Pearl and Monroe, in between the convention center and arena and surrounded by nice hotels. So why would anybody want to hide an information center inside another building? Why would anybody want to hide? And if that's what we do here in Grand Rapids, there might be one in the art museum, but nobody knows it's there. It's hidden inside another building. But this would be good for DeVos Place, Van Andel Arena, good for the city, good for the county, good for the state. The DDA should fund the building of this facility, and the Convention and Visitors Bureau should run it with a new contract. But thank you for the nice stopwatch on the screen. That's very nice. But I'm going to have to say a virtual goodbye. There's no time for questions. I'll be back at a later date. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. We always welcome your thoughts, and we appreciate your consistency and appreciate your input. Thank you so much. Any other public comment today?
Madam Chair, may I have a moment?
Sure. Can you please state your name and your address, please?
My name is Robert Krieg. I am a resident of Lowell Township, so I believe that's in your constituency.
Yep.
I am a registered Republican. In 2016, when the question came up about the election, I knew I wasn't going to vote for Clinton, but the question came up about Trump in my mind. In conversations with my friends, particularly Republican friends, they mentioned that he had personality flaws, but he supported the Republican agenda. My concern was that it was not personality flaws, but character. I voted for a third party in 2016. In the 4 years that have unfolded since then, my concerns have been verified, culminating in the January 6th events. His incendiary comments that I observed incited and inflamed a rally crowd into mob mentality. Since then, what has appalled me most is the support of the Republican lawmakers for Donald Trump, despite what has taken place. The second impeachment by the House has brought it to the Senate. I am really concerned about the dodge that the Senate has put in place, where they can vote off saying it is unconstitutional. Overall, the result for me is this: I will not vote Republican until every senator supporting Trump in this time is no longer in office. Thank you. That's what I wanted to share.
Thank you, Robert. Thanks for joining us today. Any
welcome.
other public comment today? I don't see any hands raised in the participant pool. Any email in public comment? Pam?
Just check the inbox. There are no messages.
All right. Let's move on to commissioner reports. Who has a report today? Commissioner Jones.
Thank you, Chair Bolter. Between our last meeting and this one, both West Michigan Sports Commission, which Emily attended with me, and Experience Grand Rapids met. Of course, COVID is impacting both those organizations, but they are both focused on doing what they can within COVID restrictions to continue to make an impact. And I just wanted to make a note that they are both working very hard to continue to strive to bring things around and do have visions for the future when we turn around from COVID. Thank you.
Great. Commissioner Bukowski.
Thank you, Chair. Just want to report that the Friend of the Court Community Advisory Committee met a couple weeks ago for our first meeting of 2021. Reviewed activities of last year and what the Friend of the Court has been doing to make sure that they have good customer service and connection with families in spite of the pandemic. So always check out the Friend of the Court website for any additional information or if you have questions. But that committee is doing well, and thank you to the Legislative Human Resources Committee for reappointing myself and a few other folks to that commission.
Great. Commissioner Steck.
Thank you, Chair Bolter. Just a reminder to folks that they should have received a memorandum by now identifying this timing for the legislative priority process. We indicated that we would like to have any suggested issues submitted to me by February 5, so that we can spend some time going through that, absorbing it, reviewing it before a scheduled work session for legislative priority scheduled for February 11. Also, and I don't know if you're going to address the Rules Committee, but just reminding folks that the Rules Committee will be meeting and we need to have any suggestions or thoughts of issues that you believe should be addressed, brought to our attention promptly. Thank you.
Any other commissioner reports today? I don't see any hands. Let's move on to Commissioner Miscellaneous, item 11 of our agenda. Any miscellaneous today? No miscellaneous. Oh, Commissioner Ponstein.
Thank you, Chair Bolter. I had the opportunity to listen in on the executive meeting this morning, and the discussion about PACE was interesting. I know probably 4 or 5 years ago, I think Commissioner Korndike at the time and myself were approached by PACE. And when we brought it forward, or at least when I did, I was kind of told that this wasn't something the county wanted to get involved with. So if we are indeed moving forward at this time, hopefully the full board can be brought up to speed. I don't know if rules from PACE have changed since I was first introduced to it. But the 2 questions I've got, and they don't need to be answered today, they can be part of an email, is bring us up to speed of what the benefits are for the business. Looking at it, it seems to me like the biggest benefit is the banks have a way to get the payment as a priority because they've got to pay their taxes. If that's the driving thing behind this, then I don't know, is this a role that the county wants to get into? Because my fear is that if we open up our assessment process to numerous new things, what else is going to be approached to us to add a loan payment as an assessment, and it brings it back again? Is that the role of county government? Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Ponstein. I always appreciate some of you on the board who have been here longer to give us that historical perspective. So thank you. Commissioner Skaggs.
Thank you, Chair. I experienced some technical difficulties, which probably were noticed, but I wouldn't know because I was not on the Zoom. So if it's possible, I'd like my vote on Resolution 3 to be a yes, if we can still record that.
Thank you. Noted. Commissioner Wooden.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to briefly thank all of my colleagues for the well wishes as I was recovering from an unexpected medical need. It was all very appreciated, and thankfully now I'm on the mend and just happy to be back at it. So thanks, everyone.
Great. We wish you a speedy recovery. Any other hands? I don't see any other miscellaneous today. I would just note a couple of things. We do have a pretty aggressive schedule in this first quarter. Please don't freak out with all of the work sessions. They are optional, but they are important for us to get this in a timely manner so that we can work on those things through the rest of the year. I know a budget boot camp is coming up that is also optional. Obviously, members who have been on the board for years and understand the budget process, it's probably not needed as much, but we are preparing for that. Staff is also beginning to prepare for our bond rating presentation, so we're working on that. We have a lot of issues coming down the pipeline, kind of considering our board retreat and considering the fact that we can't get together, also considering the fact that we will be having a new administrator. I'd like to put on the table the option to move that to the fall so that we could start with kind of our new staff and some of our new ideas and things coming out of COVID. Hopefully by fall, we will kind of be through some of that, or at least some of the intensity that's presented through COVID. And we can continue to move forward with some other pressing issues. We will be reactivating the Lead Action Task Force. That will be happening. There is forward motion on that. We just haven't had an update recently, but the health department is continuing to work on that. So we will be getting updated on that as well. I want to also thank the staff for the amazing collaboration at DeVos Place with the vaccination clinic. I can tell you from personal experience, just for my day job, and staff that was involved in that worked around the clock to get that done and to get that going. It's a huge community asset. It's owned by this community, and I want to thank all of the staff that worked on it. I know Wayman worked on negotiating part of that. The board was not involved in that piece of it, but we will be getting an update. Hopefully we can tour that soon, and hopefully we get vaccines so we can get people moving. We could do potentially 20,000 vaccines a day out of that operation. So we just need the vaccine. With that, I will ask Commissioner Ponstein for a motion to adjourn. Commissioner Ponstein?
There we go. Sorry about that. I move to adjourn, subject to the call of the chair, to Thursday, February 11th, 2021, for an evening meeting at 6 p.m. of the Board of Commissioners.
Moved by Commissioner Ponstein, support by Commissioner
Olkowski.
All in favor say aye. Aye. We are adjourned until February 11th at 6 p.m. Note that is an evening meeting, and we do have the a housing work session today, so I hope to see many of you there. Have a great day.